Well, I want to welcome everyone tonight and welcome Janice Evans to our Stirring the Waters meeting tonight. We're going to have a discussion and engage with Janice about her publications and her journey as a writer. I'm going to open us up with a prayer. Dear God, when our eyes do not see the gravity of racial injustice, shake us from our slumber and open our eyes, O Lord. When out of fear we are frozen into inaction, give us the spirit of bravery, O Lord. When we try our best but say the wrong things, give us a spirit of humility, O Lord. When the chaos of this dies down, give us a lasting spirit of solidarity, O Lord. When it becomes easier to point fingers outward, help us to examine our own hearts, O Lord. Amen.
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 So thank you. Thank you everyone for joining tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to introduce our guest.
Thank you. So welcome, Janice. I am so excited that you're with us. It's finally working.
Yes, thank you. Really excited to be
It's been
here.
a while, but we've been talking about this, so we're excited. Actually, Janice, you know many of us because Sandra and Susan and Anne and I all came to the St. George's Christmas Bazaar, where we
Yes.
saw your wonderful booth and your sale of your 2 books, which I have.
Thank you. Yes, you got them there. I think you got one there and then ordered the other one. I think.
So anyway, you've met many of us already, but I just wanted to first say how lucky I was that I came home from that bazaar with your book that day, because I think I've told you I was in the middle of reading a Pulitzer Prize winning book, and I put it aside. I was halfway through it. It was good, but I had bought your book and I started to read a couple of pages, and Janice, I couldn't put it down. I just left the Pulitzer Prize winning book on my night table and I read your whole book and I couldn't stop reading. And it was so compelling, and your experiences were just so different from my life and my own experiences. And I think each chapter kind of hit me in the gut. I kept thinking, oh, I hope that's not what she's going to say next. And you did. And I remember emailing you right away and telling you my feelings. And then it's kind of evolved into a friendship. So it's been wonderful.
Yes.
But to introduce Janice more formally, I want to say that she is a first Jamaican American,
First generation. Yes.
Jamaican American who grew up in Buffalo, New York, where her family actually once shopped. This kind of shocked me, at the Tops grocery store. Remember the Tops grocery store in 2020?
Oh, yeah.
That was that horrible, horrible mass shooting. Janice remembers that store. Janice has a bachelor's degree in psychology from Buffalo State University and a master's degree in counseling psychology from Howard University. And she's had her own private practice in the mental health field for 30 years. And she has a special focus on healing, which I think is particularly appealing to us. I've been lucky enough to go to, she came to one of my racial justice book groups and spoke after that group read her book. And then I was lucky enough to be invited also, like Sandra, to her celebration, her Zoom celebration of her second book. And I think the only non-St. Columbus person here is my friend Margaret. Wave, Margaret. She and I was at her house out in Sharpsburg when Janice had her celebration. So Margaret and I attended that together. So she's come again to hear you, Janice.
Great.
So as you see, you know a lot of us already.
Yes, and I hadn't realized how many times we've been together. The bazaar, then what you invited me to, then I invited you to my book celebration, and now I'm here. Wow, I didn't realize.
Yeah, you've become my new best friend. I love it.
Yes.
So anyway, before we begin our discussion, I thought maybe we could just go and I don't have any idea how Zoom faces appear, but everybody could just say their name and introduce them or reintroduce yourself, and then we'll start talking. That somebody want to start? Margaret, you want to start?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, it took me a while to get on Zoom. I'm not very IT organized. Well, I've known Sharon for a million years, and I loved listening to you with your introduction to your new book. I'm just thrilled to join you all. I've and hear about everything, and I've gotten one of your books, and I'm excited to read it. I'm just trying to get organized on this end.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll go down my row. I don't know how you all see us. Susan, you've already met. You want to reintroduce yourself?
Yeah, hi Janice. I'm Susan
Hi,
Lang. I
Susan.
met you at St. George's, and I
Yes.
haven't read your book of poetry, but I have read your first book. So.
Thank you so much.
I'll go next. I'm Sandra, and I was there at St. George's. I think we spoke briefly.
I think I remember.
Yeah, you remember me. Okay. Anyway, I read a while back your first book, not the poetry book, but the collection of remembrances. And then I got your latest poetry book, and I have to say this one really knocked me back. I thought it was so powerful. I loved it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm always amazed when people say things like that. You know, a relatively new author, so it's like, wow, really? I had that impact. So
Somebody else just jump in.
I'm Linda Haslack over here. And Janice, I think you're so courageous, and not just the topic you've chosen, the topics, the subjects that you've chosen, but just to be a poet. I think it takes such courage to really always be speaking with truth from the heart. That's the demand on the poet, I think.
yes,
Chiefly, and it's very hard.
Yeah. It's actually easier to say things in poetry.
If you're a poet.
Thank you.
Thank you for your book. Thank you.
Anne, you want to reintroduce yourself?
I'm Ann Murphy. I'm part of the group that visited you at St. George's, and I'm so grateful that you're here to talk to us tonight. Thank you again.
I appreciate it.
Carolyn?
I'm Carolyn Sterick, and I'm very pleased to be here and to meet you this evening and to hear about the books, which of course I would want to read as well.
Thank you so much.
Bernie?
And I'm Bernie Casey. I'm here with Carolyn, as you can see. And I just want to say that Carolyn has told me so much about what you all do in this group. Janice, I have not read your books, but I'm looking forward to doing it. But what you are doing in this group is really wrestling with the most enduring and ancient malignancy to affect our country. And you're doing it in a very honest way, meeting very difficult issues and being honest about them. So I've been very impressed.
Well,
Elizabeth?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Vaden, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's discussion, and thank you so much for coming.
thank you for inviting me.
And David?
Hi, I'm David Serby. I'm also very much long-time member of Stirring the Waters. Very happy to be part of this group and looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you, David.
I think that's everybody, right?
Lauren, did Lauren?
Well, Lauren, we came early, so we've been talking.
Yeah, Lauren.
No, that does seem like we forgot her, but we didn't. We tuned in at 10 to 7, so we've been having a chat. But Lauren, you want to introduce yourself again? Margaret doesn't know you.
So I Yeah, Lauren Counts and I lead the Stirring the Waters ministry and have been doing so for the last year. And it's been such a pleasure to be part of this group and on the learning journey with everyone. And yeah, excited. I read your book and looking forward to the discussion and learning more about you and your, everything you're working on.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's the group. So let's begin talking. I was thinking maybe we could start right at the beginning where if you could tell us a bit more about the impact that the murder of George Floyd had on your deciding to start writing.
Yeah.
What drew you to writing about it?
Yes. I remember that day. I was in bed. It was morning, and hadn't gotten up yet, and I was scrolling through my phone. Found myself on Facebook, and I don't remember if I saw something on the news first, and that brought me to my phone, or if it was what I saw on the phone and I turned on the news, because at one point they were on simultaneously. I saw this video that this woman, young girl, posted, and I just couldn't believe, what I was, looking at. So that's when I turned on, I think, the main news, and they were showing this video. I think I actually saw the whole thing first on my phone, and then I started watching the clips. So when I saw this man begging for his life and dying, it was just unbelievable that this was happening. And the people were yelling at the police just to stop, let him go, and it just kept going until, oh my God, just kind of reliving it just gives me the chills. Just seeing him begging for his life and then taking his last breath. It impacted, if you're a human, whether you're black, white, yellow, green, whatever, anybody who saw that was just devastated. So I don't recall, I didn't want to look at it again. So if it came on the news later that day, I didn't want to see it because it was just too graphic, too intense. So weeks went by and I just kept thinking about how things like that may happen, but there's no camera around. People complain about how they're treated by the police, but if they perceive them as someone who doesn't deserve proper treatment, they don't believe them. So I started thinking about, just because that video was there, that's why we saw that. And then I started thinking about things, that I've been through and just kind of, put it away or didn't make a big deal about it. And then that's how the story started coming. I thought about things when I was a child, teenager, young adult, and just started thinking about that racism is just kind of rampant. And I don't know, rampant is too, intense of a word, but it happens frequently. It happens a lot, but we don't see it. We don't talk about it. We just put it away. We repress it. And then we just keep moving. So as these memories kept coming, I just started writing them down. And then I found that I had several things that I had not talked about or recalled in years. Not that I repressed them, but just didn't remember because, you grow older and memories fade and you don't think about it. But after watching what happened to George Floyd, it kind of triggered me to recall the significance of those things that I went through, which caused me to start writing them down and making like a journal of them. And then I said, well, maybe I could share this with someone some of my friends, writer friends, to see how, what they think about it. And I said, well, maybe this could be a book. I don't know. And so I shared it with a couple of my friends, and they said, oh, that's good. You should keep writing. Keep writing or add to it, expand on some of these stories. And so that's what I did. And then I remember meeting a publishing consultant a few years back at an event. And we kind of kept in touch through email. She tried to invite me to become more involved with the women's writing group. Of course, I didn't have time, too busy. So I called her and said, I think I have a book here, and I wanted to know if I could hire you. And she said yes. And she read it, and she said the same things my friend said. You need to add more, expand on it. And she also said, you also need to talk about the healing side of that. You need to add more about how you healed, because that's what people need. They need to be validated for their stories about what happened to them, but they need to know how to heal. So that's how the healing part of it was added on. And it took me, I guess, I started writing in June of 2020, and the book was published in November of 2021. So that's it in a nutshell.
I love the emphasis on healing.
Mm.
I think we all need some of that in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like in your practice, your mental health practice, that you really also focus on that.
Yes, that's what I do. I try to heal people's their trauma, their unresolved trauma and hurt. So I guess it comes naturally for me to write in such a way that incorporates healing.
Mm-hmm. So we can throw any questions anybody has to ask Janice, just fire away.
Yes, Sandra?
Yeah. Janice, a number of years ago, I was sort of a college coach for a young African-American guy who our church had been involved with this group of students. And Joshua was one in particular. I was trying to mentor him about, what does he want to do with his life? Did he want to go to college? What would he like to study? And we had coffee one day, and I said to him, Joshua, if you could be just anything in the world, what would you just imagine? What would you really like to be? And he told me he wanted to be a grief counselor.
Wow.
And I said, well, what? Why? He said, because he had lost too many friends to violence. And I went home and I cried. Really, I did. And that's part of why this book really particularly hit me. I mean, I've been in touch with Joshua more recently, and he has a good job. He has a beautiful daughter and is, I don't know if they got married yet or whatnot. He's waiting to buy a house, but anyway, he's doing well, except, believe it or not, a couple of years ago, here he is, like 31 years old. He had a heart attack. He had a heart attack. He came through it, he survived. But I kept thinking back to that discussion I had with him about the amount of grief and stress that he carries in his body. And I don't know. I mean, he was in very good shape. He was sort of a health nut, actually. And for a guy like him to have a heart attack just seemed so incongruous, so unexplained. So it made me think a lot about how that collective stress and trauma and grief really can affect your whole body.
Definitely. It does. It does. There are studies that have shown that. that African Americans, because of the experiences that they suppress, regarding discrimination, racism, it does impact the body. So there's more and more coming out about that more recently, that they're more prone to physical symptoms of stress because you just internalize it. So yeah, but that really strikes me that he wanted to be a grief counselor because his experience spoke to what he wants to do and what he wants to fix.
Well,
and
he
he's a
didn't become
teenager
a
when he
grief
said that.
counselor. He didn't actually go into that line of work. He's involved in computers and IT and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think there is this very tender side to him, and I'm sure that will blossom out more.
He was a teenager when he said that to you?
17 or 18 years old.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Elizabeth.
I was interested in your talking about how a lot of these memories for you, you had forgotten, not necessarily repressed, but forgotten. And I'm wondering about, in the course of your writing about healing, the extent to which you found that the writing was part of your healing. Did it require sort of breaking something open in you, or can you talk about sort of how the writing contributed to your own journey with these kinds of issues?
With the healing, I don't probably didn't know that it was happening at the time, but yes, it had to have addressed the healing for me to acknowledge that this impacted me in such a negative way. That's the beginning of healing, is embracing it and actually writing it down, because I believe that there's something magical about writing and journaling. Actually seeing it written down is no longer in my head or in my system, and reading it and then sharing it and making it real. That's healing. So yes, writing Recollections About Race also was a part of the healing for me. Because it made me feel like these are valid now, especially when someone says how it impacted them, or that they found it the book was, they couldn't put the book down. Even that exchange with someone, it's healing because they're validating me for what I share. So the healing is an ongoing process. Linda.
Thank you. Talking about the person we present to the world, the person we think we are, the person we think we want to be, and then the person who is hiding inside. The one that's been damaged or hurt, who thinks it has to keep its mouth shut, so that it's not a part of that picture. And I just wonder what you thought about that in your own work. Is that reconciling of the pain and then what the world sees?
I think that that addresses the self-esteem and the identity conflicts that I talk about in the book, where I put out this very accomplished, successful, bright, intelligent person. Inside, I still may have some hurt or damage by how I was treated or what a professor thought of me, that I may not, be as successful, and I internalize that. So I put this face of success on, but that doesn't mean that there's some self-esteem issues there. And writing some of these stories, that kind of came to surface as well, if that answers your question.
It does. That it does. It begins to that conversation that perhaps needs to happen, where the one says to the other, "It's okay. You were just a kid."
Yeah.
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 I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll explore that one some more.
Thank you.
You talk about your father in the book as being, it sounds like he was one of your biggest cheerleaders.
Yes.
And motivators. And sadly, you shared that he recently passed. So, yeah, could you talk a little bit more about your father and the role he had in your family?
Yes, yes. From as far back as I can remember, Dad was always saying, "Why don't you turn off the TV and pick up a book and read?" Or why don't you read the newspaper, read this. And so I think we had, you know, a kind of, I don't know what the word would be. We didn't pick up a lot of books to read. So I wasn't an avid reader as a child. And then when we got older, he would always say to me, "Why don't you write a book? Why don't you write?" And I always wonder what he meant by that. I don't have anything to write about. So I thought that was so strange that he has been plugging in me to write a book from when I was probably in my 20s. And then that's what I ended up doing. So Dad was the greatest cheerleader. Dad is an avid reader. He, up until he turned 100, in his 90s, he was still going to the library every 2 weeks to get a new book. And he would say, "Oh, you have to get this book." And then we talk again in a couple of weeks. He said, "Did you finish that book yet? Did you see that chapter I was telling you about?" So that's the kind of person he was. He loved reading. He loved books up until his death. He was an avid reader, voracious reader. So yeah, he influenced me. So his funeral was June 15th. And I had an author, a Black author book fest, Juneteenth book fest here in DC on June 19th.
Oh.
And I made sure that I kept that on my calendar. 4 days after his funeral, I was there because that's where he would want me to be. And it turned out great. I sold some books and talked to a lot of people, talked to a lot of other authors, and it was just a celebration in his memory to be at that Juneteenth Black Author Fest. That's what he want me to do. So thanks for asking about Dad.
Great tribute to him.
I have not read your book, so perhaps you've addressed it, but when you were faced, as you said, as a young person with acts of racism, did you ever feel like you got support in terms of, teachers that you interacted with, other people in your life, or was that just sort of, rationalized or not faced?
I think it was just things that you experience and you move on. The first, those of you who have my book, the first experience was when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I was at a park, a public park in Buffalo, Delaware Park, and my father was on the cricket club. The Caribbean played cricket, and so there was a cricket club, and they would meet on Sundays in the park. The other teams would come over from Canada, and they would play, monthly, or my father, weekly actually, or my father's team would go over to Canada. So we would go to Canada a lot. to Ontario, different cities in Ontario, and play cricket. So this particular weekend, Sunday, the Canadian team was here, in Buffalo. And this little boy, a little white boy, came up to me and said, with this real smile on his face, "Your skin's dirty." And I said, "What?" I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought there was like dirt like on my face from playing or something. And then when he started laughing, my 8-year-old self knew, like, oh. And then he walked away. And I remember being angry, but not knowing what to say, who to say it to. So I don't think I said anything to my parents about that. But that was the first time, I realized that of my skin could attract that kind of response, I guess. So to answer your question, I don't think I've, complained or told anybody. It just, you just move on. Can't think of another one right now. But yeah, they're all the answer would still be the same. I don't recall going to anybody or going to a teacher or, going to my parents and saying, "Oh, that person did that." Well, actually, there was one. The one where I was 15 and me and a friend of mine we were walking home at night, late at night, from a skating rink. And we walked through this plaza. There's a plaza with a bunch of shops, but it was closed because it was like late. And so these white boys, about 4 or 5 white boys, were walking toward us. And when they got up to us, I'm sure they called some names. I don't recall the names, but they were saying stuff. And one of them, as they were passing, smacked him in the head, my friend. They didn't hit me, but they jumped him and started just beating him up. And I was screaming, saying, "Leave him alone, leave him alone." But he fought back. And so they left us. So we continued walking home, got to my house, and I did tell my parents, but I don't recall what happened after that. The police were called. You wouldn't call the police for that. Someone gets in a fight, we don't even know who these boys are. They're gone. This was on, maybe a mile away at this point. So to answer your question, no, I don't recall having to ask for help to deal with these things. You just look at it. This is a part of life. This is a part of being Black. These are the things that can happen to you. And you just do what you can to keep going.
You had mentioned that, of course, you're friendly and we're all friendly with Rose Duncan. But I remember her telling me at one point that one time when she was at the church and she was not in her clerical collar, that somebody approached her and as if she were the janitor, help them do something, move trash or whatever it was. I can't imagine how that must have made her feel in the church that, she served.
Yeah, right. So those are just things. And that's one of the things that I talk about, I think more or less in the introduction of Recollections, is that it's cumulative. It's just not a one and done thing. These are things that just happen. Some of them are would be referred to as minor, like a microaggression. Some are blatant, but they happen cumulatively. And over time, that impacts you, psychologically, physically, because you're just kind of seeing that as a part of life. That's a part of being Black in America.
do you think that's part of why you had the reaction after watching the video and it triggered, is there something with that cumulative trauma that the response is that you push it below the surface, or your coping mechanisms just cause you to, I'm moving on, I'm not going to dwell in that, I'm moving on, but then you're buried.
That's an excellent point. That video of George Floyd, I wasn't just crying for him, I was crying for all of us. Everything that ever happened to me, everything that happens to Black men who are shot by the police, women who are taken advantage of. Yeah, the tears and that psychological reaction, that emotional reaction wasn't just for George Floyd. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, that our trauma is triggered and we're not just, crying for that one particular incident, but we're crying for generations, crying for our ancestors.
Well, some of your poems talk about this sense of, will it never end? There's been this accumulation of macro and micro aggressions over your lifetime. Then, one of your poems, When Will We Overcome? And there's another one about it's never enough. I think never enough. That you just sort of never quite feel like you get over the top, and it's going to be in the past. And that in and of itself, I think, would be a very heavy burden to carry.
Yeah, but you kind of get used to carrying it, but it's heavy. Thank you for pointing those out. And also I want to say, if anyone wants me to read, I'll be glad to read it.
I think that would be, I was going to ask you about your poetry and what it means to you and your healing. Maybe you could do a reading and then we can talk about that.
Okay. Would you like me to just pick something?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
Whatever you want.
Okay, let's see.
And I think we lost Sharon. I think there's a
storm. I saw Sharon.
There she is. Yeah. Yeah. I got the thunder going here, so.
Read your favorite one.
My favorite one? Oh, wow.
One of your favorites.
Well, one of my favorites is, and this is very timely with all that's going on in our country right now, is Insurrection.
Oh.
Okay. Light out here. Predominantly white men representing their kinfolk, moving as one, like a disruptive hailstorm, wrecking a small town. My eyes held captive by the scene. Surreal violence escalating like a tsunami, as men morphed into wild animals, released from their cages of democracy. They scaled walls, broke windows, crashed down doors, breached barriers, pillaged sacred ground with glee, having no regard or conscience. Sorrow and anger filled my soul. Dismay and fear grew within, fueled by disbelief. My Black skin shivered. Stress-based reactions of a siege implode and seethe inside me as white men destroy with purpose on a mission to covet the country. Their boldness shook me as they attacked guardians sworn to protect them and us with their warped sense of justice. The images evoked terror, displays of arrogance and privilege, worse than the violence itself, as they took over the people's house. Chaos filled the solemn halls, reserved for civil discourse. The air rang with threats of violence, echoes still heard by the victim. My rage heightened to new levels. I watched this for hours, pondering my safety into the night. Will they move into neighborhoods? Who will stop them? The insane power of white supremacy, hell-bent on ruthless occupation, left me sick and afraid in my Black skin. Thank you, David. Thank you for the class.
That was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you related to a lot of that because we all watched that. And it just, I think it shook me differently as a Black person because of the history of violence, and racism against us. My first thought was, are there other plans? After they did this, what's next? Are they going to move out? Is there a plan, to attack? So because of our history, I felt it was natural for me to have that fear as a Black person. But I know that all of you had some of those same reactions that I did watching that.
Yes, we certainly did, but but some of those people had already gone and attacked the church with the Black Lives Matter sign in front.
Thank you
it
for
seemed
reminding
as
me of
though they were targeting in particular sort of racial groups or racial justice messages.
Yes.
And that was, and of course, marching through the Capitol with a Confederate flag,
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
that imagery was so chilling. And
Yeah.
I was afraid even in my neighborhood, I'm not in an African-American neighborhood. I'm in a predominantly white but mixed neighborhood. And I'm thinking they're going to come for us liberals, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and I'm glad you reminded me of what happened at that church. So that kind of, informed how my fear, like, are they coming for us? What's next? What's happening tomorrow? Is there something else planned? It was horrible. And I still cannot look at those videos without having to look at the videos of the insurrection. It just gives me chills to look at humanity so broken. It's just so sad to me. Anyway, so I was supposed to share more about the book. You wanted me to read a poem and then share about the poetry. I'm not sure I remember your question, but I can say that the poetry book is an extension of the first book in that it's the same stories, but it's in poetic form. It's the same experiences, but put to poetic form. And I was able to give more in the poetry book and use my imagination. It's about realities, but then the imagination, because I haven't experienced everything in this poetry book. But I can imagine what my fellow Black Americans, my ancestors have experienced. So I use poetry to try to pull from my imagination what that must have been like, along with the realities of things that have happened.
And when you write, did you start by writing the recollections and then the poetry, or did the poems come first?
Some of those poems came first. The poems actually span from 2006 to 2023. But several of them came after Recollections. Or, in 2020, 2022, based on things happening, in the world since then. So yeah, it spans many years. So I was able to pull all of those poems that I felt related to Recollections About Race and put them in sections of topics.
Did you feel that the poems allowed you to reach a deeper level of truth in yourself than just the straightforward recitation of the narrative?
Yes. Yes, to the first question. I'm thinking about the poem about hair. And it did make me reach a certain level of truth about who I am as a Black woman in my hair and what I deal with humidity and trying to figure out what am I going to do with my hair today? Or should I put heat on my hair? Should I go natural? So yes, a couple of the poems are about hair, and it brought me to a deeper sense of truth of who I am. So thank you for that question, Mark.
I'm curious whether you, go ahead, finish, Bernie.
As a professional counselor, recognizing that it's always dangerous to talk in terms of generalities, particularly talking about gender and race and matters of that kind. But nonetheless, have you experienced any difference in the readiness of people by gender or race to tap into their deepest grievances and seek some kind of healing?
That's a loaded question. I think it has to do with whether or not I develop a relationship with that person. And if there is a therapeutic relationship that has been extensive, then it doesn't matter whether race or gender, they will open up. If you don't have that relationship, if they don't feel safe, they're not going to open up, especially about a topic as difficult as racism.
Right.
In 2020, after George Floyd's death, more of my Black clients wanted to talk about what they've experienced and how, because around that time was Black men were also it seems like there was an increase in Black men being shot by police. So they were needing to talk about that and how it impacted them. So it was almost natural for them to have a Black counselor that they knew could relate to what they were experiencing. So it made them open up more. But then I also have white clients who needed to process that as well and talk about it.
Yeah.
But these are white clients who I had already had a therapeutic relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed in your book there are two poems of since George Floyd of racial killings, the Ode to Corinne Blake and the Ode to Breonna Davis. And they are very moving, and that's part of what made me reconnect all of this with the young man I was mentioning earlier, Joshua, and the trauma that he experienced watching friends be killed. Not necessarily police, some of this were, friends killing friends or rival groups.
Right. And those, one of those, the girl, I'm trying to find it because I'd love to read one if I can find what page it's on.
Well, Caron Blake is on page 39
yes,
and
yes,
Ariana is on 41.
yes. Ariana was a 10-year-old, I believe, 10-year-old. And that was, she was just caught in the crossfire of people shooting, you know, what we hear every day on the news. She was just caught in that, riding in the car with her family. Caron was trying to break in a car, and the resident came out and shot him dead. So those really impacted me because these are children, innocent, especially Ariana. Of course, there are 13-year-olds who are out here doing all kind of heinous things, but still kids. I mean, what circumstance brought them to that point in the first place? So it still, you know, breaks my heart to hear of that. So I wanted to add those two because that's it's just one of the ongoing things that we hear that's going on, that's affecting us. So I can read Ariana, Ode to Ariana. Riding in the back seat, tucked safely in with family on Mother's Day. Flying bullets heard, pierces car and innocence. Upper body wounds. Hail of bullets rend a family celebration Sunday broken. Forever broken. Car rides used to bring joy. Sunday packed in the back, headed to McDonald's. Sundays were safe and fun. After church, after groceries, hamburger and fries. Road trips, rides to Haynes Point, games in the back seat, counting Volkswagens. No barrage of bullets interrupting peace, assaulting blue skies. What in the actual are 10-year-olds doing, riding safely with family and dying anyway? Blessed angel ripped away, safe now in the arms of Christ, left a void on Mother's Day. And since then, we've heard of 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, I mean, being shot. It's still happening. So that really rips me. So I had to write about it.
Yeah.
Linda, I think you had a question.
Oh gosh, what was it? I don't know that I can really remember. Your reading of that just took me back to when I read it and just how yeah. And hearing, you know, the summer of starting with Trayvon. That was the summer of 16. Was it 16 or 14?
I think Trayvon was before that.
There was just a spate, it seemed to me. I was seeing a young woman for grief counseling. She came to my house, this lovely young Black woman. And she had seen my husband in hospice. She'd come so often. And in that summer, it's just like, and she was coming to see me like every other week. It was just a really nice aspect of this particular hospice service that we were able to find. And we sat there through that summer, just in disbelief as these things kept happening, witnessing them together. And I was so grateful for her presence. Yeah, just, I don't know that. Oh, I wanted to ask about just the purpose of art. You know, so many of these, we are horrified by Martin Luther King, by Malcolm X, the death of these heroes, these great people. We heard about those, and at the same time, there probably were other people that didn't make the news or social media also dying. And so, and then we are enraged about it, and then it just kind of goes away. And now we've had this uprising since the death of George Floyd. So, do you think it's too much to bear, and that's why it just kind of does this? Or what is the purpose of art in these cases? How do we, is it the purpose of art to do what, do you think? Help me.
I think that art is a way to present truth in a palpable way. If it's a poem, the poem that I just read,
Yeah.
you can hear that and experience that. But maybe if a woman was yelling at you about her child being shot, you're not going to hear her because her energy may be pushing you away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you put it in an art form, maybe you can have more compassion for her. So I think art helps us. That helps us put heavy things in a form that is more powerful.
I think of the great song Birmingham Sunday.
What is that song?
Birmingham Sunday. About the killing of the children, the bombing of the church.
Oh,
Where the four girls were killed.
Yes, the 4 girls were killed.
Yes, yes.
And I just, that it keeps telling us, keeps reminding us, I guess, as you said, in a palatable way.
Yeah. Reminders. Margaret, I know you want to say something.
You know, well, that was what I was going to say. I think also it's to remember.
Yeah.
I think our political scene right now, there are a lot of politicians in places that are trying to shove everything back under the rug. There's no difference. There's no prejudice. There's no racism. Kids don't need to read about it. Nothing really happens. You know, it's just being shoved under the rug. And I think things like your poetry, we have to remember. And for those that are ignoring, there's got to be a record. There's got to be, so that the understanding, so that it doesn't get pushed away again. And that's a fear. So I think your poems are beautiful in that sense.
Yeah. And that was one of my goals, is to put all of this in a form that would be acceptable for people to read and really embrace and say, oh, I didn't realize it from that point of view. Oh, I didn't think about that emotion involved in that particular incident. I didn't realize how someone could be hurt on that level. Or, you know, it takes some, like I talk about the double consciousness, how people don't realize that there's so many different thoughts going on in a person's head. And by writing it, putting in a book and putting in a poem, it shares with you what's going on in my head. And again, the goal is to increase compassion and understanding. So yeah, that is my goal.
Your poetry and your choice of words just bring up palpable feelings. There's just emotions that you can just feel your heart beating faster. You can feel your face scrunched up. It affects my whole body.
And that's universal.
And you know
so
what?
We could find each other that way. Yes. Isn't that going to bring us together?
We're all human, right?
Yeah.
We all. When I got your book at St. George's, I just thought this might be a way to wrap it up. You wrote in the front, we had just met, and you wrote in the front of my book, Sharon, thank you so much for your support and interest in my story. I hope it expands your understanding of the African American experience. piece, Janice. And thank you, because you achieved that goal.
Thank you.
It certainly expanded all of our understanding.
You're welcome. I appreciate that. That the mission accomplished. That's
Yeah.
what that's why I want to do these types of things. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
We're so grateful for your joining tonight. I thought it was a really powerful discussion, and thank you for your vulnerability in your poetry and your book, and for sharing the stories with us tonight.
You're very welcome. It's an honor to be here with all of you. I just love the way you've embraced me and listened and had great questions. So it's been an honor. So I appreciate it.
We're looking forward to your next book, Janice.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Hold me to task, okay?
That's right.
I have to
Don't wait,
keep
don't
writing.
make us wait too long.
Okay, I won't, I promise. Right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right, nice meeting everyone and seeing
Good
everyone.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Good night.